Welcome to the Sleeping Witness channel, where forgotten voices come alive in the quiet of the night. Tonight, let the weight of the day slip away. Find a comfortable place to rest, close your eyes, and allow yourself to drift through time. You won't just hear about history, you'll live it. In this story, you'll walk the stone streets of ancient Pompeii. You'll feel the warmth of the morning sun, taste sweet wine, and breathe the sharp air rising from the mountain. But as shadows lengthen and the sky begins to change, you'll witness what few have survived to tell. You were there, on the last day, and now your story begins. If you enjoy stories that carry you through time, remember to subscribe and let history whisper you to sleep. What if you could witness the final day of Pompeii, not as a distant observer, but through the eyes of someone who lived it? Imagine standing in the heart of the city, not as a tourist among ruins, but as a Roman leader facing choices that affect thousands. You feel the cobblestones beneath your sandals, hear the anxious murmurs in the streets, and notice how even the birds fell silent that morning. History says the eruption came in August, though some now wonder if it was October. What date will history agree on? Either way, the signs were there, subtle but real, before the ash began to fall. The day begins in silence, the kind that settles before the city's noise seeps in. You rise, feeling the cool marble under your bare feet, and let the hush of your villa linger a moment longer. Servants move quietly in the background, already preparing your toga, laying out honey cakes and a cup of watered wine. Their movements are more subdued than usual, their eyes flicking toward the window and the distant outline of Vesuvius. You notice the tension in the air, subtle but unmistakable. You cross the hall, the stone cold against your soles, and glance at the painted gods on your walls. Jupiter stands ready with his bolt, Mars with his spear, while Venus's painted eyes seem to follow you. Most mornings, these frescoes are just decoration, a reminder of tradition and family pride. Today, they feel different, as if the gods themselves are watching more closely. You pause before Vulcan, the god of fire, and notice how the painted flames seem to catch the lamplight, flickering just at the edge of your vision. At the dining table, you break your fast with honey cakes, savoring the sweetness. The honey came from local farms, the bread from a baker whose livelihood depends on the grain shipments you approve. Every bite reminds you of your responsibilities, the quiet web of decisions that keeps Pompeii running. You slip your signet ring onto your finger, its weight familiar, and think about the contracts you'll seal today. One document, a marriage contract, waits for your approval. The press of your ring in warm wax will change two families' futures. It's a small act, but it matters, and you feel the gravity of it. A servant enters to refill your cup, his hands trembling just enough for you to notice. Others pass through the room, speaking in lowered voices, glancing at the mountain beyond the courtyard. You've always prided yourself on reading the mood of your household, and today unease lingers in every corner. Is it the mountain, the air, or something less tangible, a feeling that something is about to shift? You step toward your private shrine, where small statues of the household gods stand watch. The morning prayer to Jupiter feels heavier today, the words sticking in your throat. You pour wine onto the altar, watching the red liquid pool and soak into the marble. Even the incense seems heavy, as though the gods hesitate to welcome it. You pause, searching for reassurance in ritual, but find only a sense of waiting. Your routine is as old as your office. Rise before dawn, eat in silence, make your offering, then prepare for the day's work. 6 years as magistrate have taught you the rhythms of power, who to trust, which citizens to watch, how to balance the needs of merchants and farmers. Each morning, you review the city's petitions, stamp decisions that ripple through the community, and try to keep the peace. But today, the routine feels fragile, as if it might crack under the slightest pressure. As you step outside, the morning air feels cooler than usual. The familiar smells of bread and charcoal fires drift through the streets, but there's something else. a faint, sharp hint of sulfur just beneath the surface. You pause, breathing in. The mountain has always sent up odd smells from its hot springs, but today the scent is stronger, more insistent. You wonder if anyone else notices. The city stretches out before you, red tile roofs glowing in the early light, the forum's columns catching the sun. From here, Pompeii looks unchanged. Children chasing each other, bakers carrying fresh loaves, merchants opening their shops. Yet, you sense a tension beneath the surface, as if everyone is waiting for something unnamed. Your sandals strike the stone pavement as you walk toward the forum, each step a reminder of the city's order and design. The aqueduct brings fresh water, the sewers carry waste away, and the streets run straight as any in Rome. You take pride in this, in the quiet strength of Roman engineering, but today it feels less certain. The mountain looms in the distance, silent and unmoving, but somehow more present than ever. You glance back at your villa, at the servants clustered near the entrance, at the painted gods who watched you leave. The weight of leadership settles on your shoulders again, heavier than before. The city trusts you to keep it safe, to make decisions that protect their homes and families. You walk on, trying to shake off the unease, but it lingers, woven through every breath and every step. The forum lies ahead, busy with the first stirrings of the day. You move forward, ready to face the city's needs, not knowing that this morning will be different from all the others that came before. The forum's energy greets you the moment you step beneath the stone archway, drawing you into the city's core. This is where the day's business, worship, and politics all converge. The stalls beneath the colonnades are already alive with movement, merchants arranging baskets of olives, bolts of wool, and amphorae of oil. Their voices rise and fall, calling out prices and bargains, but there's a subtle edge to the usual chatter. The air feels dense, carrying the scent of incense drifting from the temple of Jupiter, mingled with a sharper sulfur tang that seems to settle at the back of your throat. You make your way toward the basilica steps, where a small crowd has gathered. Faces turn as you approach, a mix of respect and expectation in their eyes. There's a tension in the way people stand, shoulders tight, glances flickering not just to you, but repeatedly to the looming shape of Vesuvius beyond the rooftops. Even the priests, busy with their morning sacrifices, seem distracted as they pour wine and grain into bronze bowls at the temple's entrance. A group of citizens waits for your judgment. A fountain in the eastern district has slowed to a trickle, and the residents are anxious. The city's water system is a point of pride, fed by aqueducts and managed with care, but any disruption threatens daily life. The petitioner, a woman with dust on her tunic, explains that her family and neighbours now queue for hours at dawn, buckets in hand, worried the flow will stop altogether. Another man, representing the nearby bakery, adds that without reliable water, his ovens will go cold. You listen carefully, asking questions about recent repairs and the state of the pipes. A scribe records your words on a wax tablet, his stylus scratching quietly above the murmurs of the crowd. You promise to send workers to inspect the aqueduct and order temporary rationing in the affected district. The woman nods with relief, and the baker thanks you, his gratitude tinged with anxiety. Nearby, other disputes wait their turn. Traders muttering about dock fees, a family quietly arguing over the inheritance of a wine shop, builders frustrated by blocked access to a public fountain. You handle each case in turn, weighing evidence, applying the law, and considering the broader impact on the city. Each decision feels like a stone dropped into a pool, sending ripples outward. The crowd shifts and grows, drawn by the promise of resolution, or at least the hope of being heard. The basilica's cool interior offers a brief respite from the sun, but not from the weight of responsibility. Here, legal matters play out in the open, property lines, contracts, accusations of fraud. The echo of voices inside the basilica is punctuated by the clack of sandals on marble and the occasional raised voice as tempers flare. Outside, the forum's marketplace stretches out in a patchwork of goods and people. Jars of Spanish olive oil stand beside baskets of Egyptian grain. A jeweler displays amber F from the north, and a spice merchant fans the air, releasing a faint warmth from his wares brought in from the eastern Mediterranean. The variety on display is a reminder of Pompeii's reach, a port city connected to distant lands, its prosperity built on trade. Social boundaries are visible in every interaction. A freedman approaches you, his tunic plain, but his posture dignified. He greets you with a respectful nod, offering a sample of his wine, an unspoken request for favor, but also a sign of his growing status. You accept, noting the careful balance he strikes. Deference without civility. Ambition kept just below the surface. Around you, slaves move quickly from stall to stall, carrying messages or goods for their masters, while patricians in fine togas pause to exchange news or seek your ear for private matters. As you move through the forum, you sense the city's order at work. Officials manage the flow of commerce. Scribes record transactions, and priests perform rituals at the temples. The public fountains, usually a place for gossip and news, are quieter today. People fill their jars quickly and leave, casting uneasy glances skyward. The usual rhythm of the forum, bargaining, laughter, heated debate, feels muted, as if everyone is waiting for something to break the spell. The smell of incense grows stronger as the priests at Jupiter's temple burn offering after offering. The smoke curls above the rooftops, struggling to mask the sulfur edge that hangs in the air. Even the animals seem unsettled. A dog barks and refuses to settle, and the birds that usually flock around the food stalls are scarce. The city's routines persist, but the sense of normalcy feels thin, stretched over a growing sense of unease. Your secretary approaches with news from the countryside. Shepherds have found dead birds near the mountain, and odd vapors have been seen drifting across the fields. You note the reports, but there's no time to investigate now. The business of the forum presses in, contracts to seal, disputes to settle, lives to guide. You remind yourself that order depends on steady leadership, and so you keep the proceedings moving, even as your mind returns again and again to the mountain's silent presence. As the morning goes on, you see how each judgment shapes the city's future. The woman from the Eastern District will spread word of your fairness to her neighbors. The baker will remember your intervention the next time he faces hardship. The freedman's respectful greeting hints at shifting fortunes, a reminder that status in Pompeii is fluid, always subject to change. Every action here, every word, every decision, echoes through the lives of thousands. Yet, even as you carry out your duties, the mood in the forum continues to shift. People's attention drifts from your rulings to the horizon. Conversations falter as citizens glance at the sky, searching for reassurance in the familiar outline of Vesuvius. The city's careful balance, commerce, law, ritual, status, feels precarious, as if one strong gust could scatter it all. You leave the forum behind, stepping into the street where the city's social structure becomes more visible with every step. The next part of your day will test not just your authority, but the very foundations of Pompeii's hierarchy. Walking through Pompeii's streets, the city's social order is laid out as clearly as its paving stones. Your position is never in doubt. Each step reinforces the invisible lines that organize Roman life. Citizens, freedmen, slaves, everyone knows their place. And every interaction is shaped by this hierarchy, the way people move aside, the careful tone of their greetings, even the distance they keep when you pass. All reveal a world built on status and tradition. The morning sun glints off the bronze clasp at your shoulder as you pass the grand homes of the city's elite. Each villa stands as a silent competition, columns polished until they mirror the street, mosaic floors just visible through open doors, walls covered in frescoes with colours that only the wealthiest can afford. Marcus Crassus has just finished adding new marble columns to his entrance. Their surface is so smooth you catch your own reflection as you walk by. The Flavian family displays a mosaic of gods and heroes, the tiles so finely set that the images seem to move in the shifting light. These homes are more than places to live. They are public statements, declarations of power and taste. The contest never ends. Last month, Gaius Petronius installed a courtyard fountain where water runs day and night, a luxury that quietly announces his wealth. His neighbour answered with frescoes painted in rare pigments from Egypt and India, deep blues and purples that shimmer in the sunlight. The artist worked for weeks, and now every visitor who steps inside is greeted by scenes from Homer, rendered in colours most people will never see outside a dream. As you continue, a group of slaves carrying water jars slips to the edge of the street. Their movements are automatic, practiced from years of knowing when to disappear. They keep their eyes down, pressing against the wall to make room for you. One boy, barely 15, has the pale hair of someone taken from the north. Another, older, bears scars on his arms, evidence of years spent in the mines before he earned a place in a household. The rules are clear. Slaves do not meet your gaze, and they do not speak unless spoken to. Behind them, 3 freedmen follow at a respectful distance. Their manner is different, deferential but not servile. One, Lucius Felix, nods as you pass. His tunic is good quality, but not ostentatious, showing he's aware of the delicate balance between ambition and humility. You know his story. Once a slave, now the owner of a busy pottery workshop, his rise is a point of pride for the city, and a reminder that Roman society, while strict, offers a path for those who can seize it. Your clientele, those who depend on your influence, begin to gather as you make your way through the city. Gaius Maeanius, a merchant whose forum stall owes its location to your recommendation, is the first to greet you. His words are carefully chosen, respectful but familiar, always hinting at gratitude for past favors and hope for future ones. These relationships are the lifeblood of the city. You offer protection and opportunity, and in return, your clients provide loyalty, support, and the visible proof of your standing. The city's buildings tell the same story as its people. Your own villa covers most of a block, with rooms arranged for privacy and comfort. Thick walls keep out the noise of the street. The windows are placed to catch the breeze, but also to keep your family safe. Servants live on the ground floor, while your family's quarters occupy the upper level, away from the bustle below. Just a few streets away, the insulae, the apartment buildings, rise above the market stalls. These crowded structures house the city's poor, families stacked one on top of another, in rooms barely large enough for sleeping. The higher the floor, the cheaper the rent, and the greater the risk. Fires, theft, and the exhausting climb up narrow stairs. From the street, you catch the smells of cooking fires, hear children's voices echoing from open windows, and see laundry flapping from every balcony. The contrast with your own home is impossible to ignore. You make mental notes as you walk. The Vetti brothers have added new statues to their garden, a sign that their wine business is thriving. Meanwhile, you haven't seen Marcus Lucretius at the baths or the theatre lately, and his son mentioned debts, a warning that fortunes can shift quickly. Keeping track of these changes is part of your job. Your influence depends on knowing who is rising and who is falling. People approach you with requests and offerings. A baker's wife presents a loaf of fresh bread, hoping to smooth over her husband's recent dispute in the forum. A young man from a respected family asks for your support in seeking a civic appointment. An older citizen needs help settling a property boundary. Each exchange follows unwritten rules, a choreography of respect, obligation, and subtle negotiation. But today, something is different. The usual order is fraying at the edges. A slave nearly bumps into you, distracted by something in the sky. A freedman's polite greeting gives way to a question about rumors from the mountain. Even your clients, usually so careful to follow protocol, let their eyes wander toward Vesuvius as they speak. The city's routines hold, but only just. The patron-client system has always relied on predictability, on the certainty that everyone knows their place and plays their part. You offer protection and opportunity. Your clients repay you with loyalty and public support. It's a web of obligation that extends through every level of society, binding the city together in ways both visible and invisible. Your morning walk is a lesson in how these connections work. Every nod, every gift, every request is a thread in the fabric of Pompeii's social order. The balance between authority and responsibility is delicate, maintained through daily acts of generosity, judgment, and discipline. The city's stability depends on these relationships and on the willingness of its leaders to uphold them. Yet as you move through the city, you feel the weight of something larger pressing in. The mountain stands beyond the rooftops, unmoved by status or tradition. Natural forces do not care about wealth or reputation, and the city's careful hierarchy seems suddenly fragile in the face of uncertainty. The streets begin to slope gently toward the water, and the sounds of commerce shift. The scent of the sea mixes with the city's usual smells, and the shouts of dock workers drift on the breeze. Pompeii's prosperity is built on more than social order. It depends on the lifeblood flowing through its harbour, where ships from across the empire bring goods, news, and fortune. The streets become busier as you approach the docks, the air shifting from the dust of the city to the briny tang of the waterfront. Here, the business of Pompeii is laid bare. Managing the harbour is not just about overseeing trade, it's about holding together the city's economic lifeline, where every crate and coin matters. You pass under a stone arch and step onto the damp flagstones of the harbour district. The sounds change. The steady rhythm of hammers on crates, the thud of amphorae being stacked, the low voices of merchants haggling in Greek, Latin, and the clipped dialects of distant provinces. Dock workers haul sacks of grain and barrels of olives, their tunics stained with sweat and salt. The harbour's daily routine is a well-practiced dance. But today every movement seems a little faster, every gesture more anxious. A ship from Gaul is moored close to the quay, its hull heavy with wine. Men form a line along the gangplank, passing amphorae hand to hand, their laughter quieter than usual. You watch the tax collector tally each vessel, noting the marks on the clay. Every shipment is a line in the city's budget, funds for the aqueducts, the roads, the next festival in the amphitheatre. The city's prosperity is not abstract. You see it measured in cargo, in the calluses on workers' hands, and in the coins that clink into the strongbox at the customs house. The harbour's wealth is visible everywhere. Marble from Greece gleams in the morning sun, ready to become the next villa's columns, or a statue for a wealthy patron's garden. Baskets of Egyptian grain are stacked in neat rows, their contents destined for bakeries and kitchens across the city. There are barrels of garum, the sharp-smelling fish sauce prized by Romans, and crates of amber and glass from the north. Pompeii's harbour is a crossroads, and you can sense the city's unique blend of cultures in every transaction. A Greek merchant negotiating with a freedman from Africa, a Roman matron inspecting silk from the east. But beneath the surface, something is off. The shipping manifest shows delays, and 3 captains mention odd happenings at sea. Fish float lifeless near the shore, and dolphins that usually play in the bay are nowhere to be seen. The water is different, cloudier, with a strange taste. Many sailors are uneasy, and you know these men don't worry without cause. You make a note to ask the city's water inspectors about any changes in the aqueducts. but the unease lingers. Inside the largest warehouse, the smell of garum is overwhelming, a pungent blend of salt and fermentation. Amphorae are stacked in careful rows, each one representing months of labor and the fortunes of families. Garum is more than just a condiment. It's a business that supports an entire network. Fishermen, merchant. You pause to watch a group of dock workers unloading a shipment of marble. Their shoulders strain under the weight as they maneuver the heavy blocks onto wooden sleds. These stones will soon become part of a new villa or a public monument, each one a testament to the city's ambition and the competition among its elite to outshine their neighbors. The taxes collected here will fund repairs to the forum, new public fountains, and the games that fill the amphitheater with cheering crowds. Commerce here is not just about wealth, it's about civic pride and the visible health of the city. A ship's captain from Alexandria approaches, his face drawn and serious. He greets you with the cautious respect of someone used to dealing with authority. His crew, he explains, wants to leave as soon as possible. They've grown uneasy. Some say the mountain whispers to them in dreams. Others just want to avoid the harbor altogether. The captain glances over his shoulder, lowering his voice as he tells you about his men's fears. Bad dreams, a sense of being watched, and an urge to get out while they still can. You listen, weighing his concerns against the needs of the city. If ships start leaving early, trade will be disrupted. Contracts depend on schedules, and the merchants in Rome expect their shipments on time. If captains abandon their cargoes, the loss will ripple through every level of Pompeii's society. Dock workers without wages, merchants without goods, tax collectors with empty ledgers. You assure the captain that there is no danger, that Roman ports are safe and the city needs his business. He nods, but the worry in his eyes doesn't fade. As you walk back along the docks, you notice other crews moving with the same nervous energy. Sailors check their ropes and sails more often. Merchants rush to finish paperwork and load carts. The usual banter is subdued, replaced by quick glances toward the mountain and muttered conversations. Even the animals seem restless. A mule refuses to be led, braying and stamping its feet until its handler gives up and ties it to a post. The harbor's usual soundtrack, creaking timbers, shouted orders, the splash of water against stone, feels different today. It's the same routine, but the mood has shifted. The creaks sound like groans, the shouts are edged with impatience, and the slap of waves seems to carry a warning. You can't help but wonder if you're witnessing the first cracks in the city's carefully built prosperity. You make your decision. Ships must remain until their business is finished. It's a practical choice. Pompeii's economy can't afford a panic, and the loss of trade would be disastrous. You relay your orders through the harbour master, instructing him to keep the port running as usual. The captain from Alexandria returns to his ship, his crew watching him with a mixture of disappointment and resignation. They unload their cargo, but the urgency in their movements betrays their unease. Other captains have overheard the exchange. Some shake their heads. Others simply get back to work, but a sense of tension runs through the harbour. You watch as merchants hurry to complete deals, dock workers move faster than usual, and tax collectors keep a close eye on every transaction. The city's economic engine keeps turning, but you sense how fragile it all is, how quickly confidence can turn to fear. You pause for a moment at the edge of the quay, looking out over the water. The ships bob gently at anchor, their masts swaying in the breeze. On another day, the sight would fill you with pride, a reminder of Pompeii's reach and the wealth that flows through its hands. Today, it feels more uncertain. You wonder if the very prosperity that binds people here might also keep them from recognizing danger when it comes. Turning away from the docks, you follow a narrow street back toward the heart of the city. The clatter of carts and the calls of vendors grow louder as you approach a busy intersection. Here, the world of trade and politics gives way to something more personal, the daily lives of ordinary people, the places where news spreads faster than official decrees, The scent of roasting meat and spiced wine drifts from a nearby food stall, drawing a different crowd. Slaves, freedmen, merchants and travelers, all sharing a meal and a story. If you want to know what's really happening in Pompeii, you don't rely on official reports or the carefully rehearsed words of the forum. The city's true intelligence network runs through its thermopolia, the bustling street food counters, where everyone from slaves to freedmen grabs a quick meal. Here, news and rumours simmer alongside pots of stew, and even a Roman leader can blend in just enough to hear what people are actually thinking. The thermopolium at the corner of Via Stabiana is your usual stop. It's not fancy, just a marble counter with deep terracotta jars set into the surface, each one holding something hot and filling. There's no pretension here. Construction workers eat hunched over bowls of lentils, slaves on errands gulp watered wine, and merchants vent about taxes or the latest price of fish. The owner knows most regulars by name and has a knack for remembering who prefers their Molsum sweet and who wants extra herbs in their stew. For you, this place is more than a convenience. It's where the city's pulse is loudest, if you know how to listen. Today, as you approach, the mood is different. The usual banter about chariot races and gladiator scores has faded. Instead, voices drop to whispers or cut off entirely when a stranger comes near. People sit closer together, leaning in to talk, their eyes darting around the room. The energy is tense, as if everyone is sharing a secret they're not sure they should say out loud. The owner spots you and nods, already preparing your usual order. He pours Molsum, wine sweetened with honey, into a clay cup and sets a bowl of thick lentil stew on the counter. The meal is simple, but it's familiar, and the routine of it usually puts you at ease. Today, though, the owner's hands shake slightly as he works. He lingers, asking quietly if you've heard about the strange noises coming from the mountain at night, or the way the air tastes different in the mornings. You can tell he's worried, but he doesn't want to say too much in front of other customers. You sit on one of the stone stools and listen. A mason, hands still dusted with lime, talks about cracks that appeared overnight in a wall his crew finished last week. He insists the foundation was solid, but now the stones have hairline fractures running through them. His foreman told him not to worry, it's just settling, he said. But the mason shakes his head. He's built enough walls to know when something isn't right. On the wall behind the counter, painted panels show scenes from mythology. Jupiter hurling thunderbolts, Venus rising from the sea, Mars leading soldiers into battle. You've looked at these images 100 times, but today they seem different. The colors feel harsher, the stories less triumphant. The painting of Jupiter fighting the Titans looks more like chaos than order. Even Venus, usually a symbol of beauty, seems to be fleeing the waves instead of emerging from them. On the wall behind the counter, painted panels show scenes from mythology. Jupiter hurling thunderbolts, Venus rising from the sea, Mars leading soldiers into battle. You've looked at these images 100 times, but today they seem different. The colors feel harsher, the stories less triumphant. The painting of Jupiter fighting the Titans looks more like chaos than order. Even Venus, usually a symbol of beauty, seems to be fleeing the waves instead of emerging from them. A water carrier, shoulders stooped from years of hauling amphorae, sets down his load and orders a cup of wine. He complains about the fountains running slow all over the city. The water tastes odd, he says, as if it's been sitting in metal pipes too long. He's had customers refuse to drink, and he's worried the problem is spreading. Others at the counter nod in agreement. Someone mentions that the well near the market has gone dry for the first time in memory. The owner serves your stew, but instead of moving on to the next customer, he stays close. He tells you his wife hasn't slept well in days. She wakes up from nightmares, always the same. Fire falling from the sky, roofs collapsing, the city buried in ash. He tries to laugh it off, but his eyes linger on the mountain visible through the doorway. You notice he's not alone. More than one person in the room glances that way, as if expecting to see something unusual at any moment. You take a sip of the Molsum. The sweetness is sharper than usual, the wine's aftertaste lingering longer on your tongue. The lentil stew, normally hearty and comforting, feels heavy in your stomach. Every sense seems heightened, but not in a pleasant way. The smell of roasting meat and spiced wine, usually mouth-watering, now seems almost overpowering. tinged with something sharp and metallic that you can't quite place. More workers drift in, each bringing their own small story. A baker complains that his oven takes twice as long to heat, burning through more wood than usual. A fisherman says his nets have come up empty for 3 days, though the bay has always been reliable. A shepherd describes how his sheep refuse to graze near the lower slopes of the mountain, bolting at the slightest sound. These aren't the wild rumors of anxious citizens. They're practical people, describing changes in their daily work. You realize that the thermopolium is more than a place to eat. It's a listening post, an informal network of eyes and ears. People here notice the details that official reports miss. They talk about the things that matter to them. Cracks in walls, water that tastes wrong, animals behaving strangely. In this setting, the social distance between you and the workers shrinks. They speak more openly, trusting that you'll understand the difference between idle gossip and real problems. The air inside feels heavier than usual. The usual warmth of the room, the chatter, even the familiar smells all seem changed. There's a sharpness in the air, a faint, acrid note that makes you want to breathe shallowly. You watch as people shift in their seats, glance at the door, and lower their voices. The sense of unease is contagious. You want to dismiss the fear as superstition. Romans see omens in everything. A bird flying the wrong way, a strange cloud at sunset, a dream that lingers after waking. But the people here aren't just worried, they're observant. The mason knows his walls. The water carrier understands the city's fountains. The baker and fisherman notice when their tools and routines stop working as they should. This isn't panic, it's a pattern, one that grows clearer with every story you hear. For years, you've relied on places like this to get the truth behind the city's official face. The thermopolium gives you a clearer sense of the city's mood than any speech in the forum or report from a magistrate. Today, the message is unmistakable. Something is wrong, and everyone feels it, even if they can't explain exactly what it is. You finish your meal, thank the owner, and step back into the street. The mountain looms in the distance, its slopes washed in afternoon light. You can't shake the feeling that the city is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The familiar routines of daily life continue, but beneath them, the sense of unease grows stronger. As you make your way home, the stories you heard at the thermopolium echo in your mind. The city's real intelligence network has spoken, and the message is clear. The weight of these warnings settles on your shoulders as you return to your villa, where private reflection will force you to confront what you've learned and what you might be powerless to change. Mount Vesuvius stands silent and massive beyond the city walls, its shadow stretching across the rooftops as the afternoon sun begins to fade. You've seen the mountain every day of your life, its gentle slopes covered in vineyards, its rocky summit familiar and unthreatening. For generations, it has defined Pompeii's horizon, its rich soil feeding the city's farms, and its presence shaping the lives of everyone who lives in its shadow. Grapevines climb the lower hills, their fruit pressed into wines prized as far away as Rome. Olive trees thrive here, their silvery leaves shimmering in the breeze, and wheat fields ripple with grain that feeds thousands. The mountain is not just a landmark, it is the source of the city's prosperity. But lately, the mountain seems different. The tremors have become more frequent and noticeable, sometimes shaking the marble floors of your villa or rattling cups on the dining table. The vibrations are subtle, but they last longer than you remember from your childhood. You've grown used to bracing yourself against a wall as the ground shifts beneath your feet, waiting for the movement to pass. Sometimes the shaking is so gentle you almost miss it, but other times it is strong enough to make doors swing open or windows shudder in their frames. There is a new smell in the air, a sharp, sulphurous tang that drifts through the city, especially in the early mornings when the streets are quiet. It mixes with the usual sense of baking bread and roasting meat, but it lingers in a way that is hard to ignore. Some citizens claim they can taste it in the water drawn from the fountains, though the aqueducts still run clear. You notice the way people wrinkle their noses as they pass, and how the odor seems to come from the direction of the mountain itself. 17 years ago, An earthquake shook Pompeii so violently that the Temple of Jupiter lost its roof, and several grand houses cracked beyond easy repair. The amphitheatre took years to restore. That disaster left scars on the city, walls reinforced with new stone, columns replaced, some families leaving for safer ground. The memory remains fresh in the minds of older citizens, and every new tremor brings a flicker of that old fear. You remember how life changed after that quake. Builders busy for months, priests offering extra sacrifices, and neighbors whispering about omens. Now, reports from across the city reach you daily. Wells that have always provided fresh water are running dry without warning. The public fountain near the forum flows more slowly, though there are no signs of a blockage. Farmers on the slopes talk about cracks opening in the fields overnight, some wide enough to swallow a sheep. Strange vapors drift from these fissures, carrying a smell that even the livestock avoid. A farmer tells you his sheep refuse to graze near the cracks, huddling together in the farthest corners of their pasture. You hear stories from the upper slopes as well. Shepherds find dead birds scattered in the grass, with no wounds or signs of disease. Flocks that once roamed freely now bunch together, uneasy and difficult to control. Even the shepherds themselves feel unsettled, though they struggle to explain why. Their unease is contagious, spreading from the hills down into the city. The wealth that flows through Pompeii's markets and harbours begins on the mountain's fertile slopes. The Suvian wine and olive oil are prized across the empire, and the city's reputation for abundance is tied to the land itself. Most people can't imagine the mountain as anything but a source of good fortune. Its presence is woven into every part of daily life, from the food on the table to the coins in the market stalls. Yet as the signs multiply, so do the rituals. Priests in every temple burn more incense and offer larger sacrifices. The smoke from these ceremonies rises above the rooftops, visible from the harbour and the fields. Some priests whisper about omens they've never seen before, flames that burn blue or green, animals that struggle violently before the knife, patterns in the entrails that defy interpretation. These stories circulate quietly, but the sense of unease grows with each retelling. Your instincts push you to look for practical explanations. Perhaps the tremors are caused by changes in underground water, or the sulfur smell comes from new vents in the hot springs. Dead birds might have eaten something poisonous, or a disease could be spreading among the flocks. Wells running dry might signal a drought. Each problem taken alone seems manageable, a challenge for an administrator, not a sign of impending disaster. You remind yourself that Roman leaders are expected to remain rational and calm, especially when others begin to worry. Superstition, you've always believed, makes problems worse. Panic spreads quickly, and frightened citizens can undermine the city's stability faster than any natural event. You focus on the facts, collecting reports, listening to complaints, and weighing the evidence. The priest's warnings about angry gods are part of tradition, and you respect the rituals, but you don't let them shape your decisions. Still, the pattern is hard to ignore. The mountain's warnings are subtle but persistent, and the city's mood is changing. People gather in small groups to talk about the tremors and the odd smells. Merchants speak in hushed voices about missed deliveries and nervous sailors. Even the children play more quietly, casting glances toward Vesuvius as they chase each other through the streets. You walk through your villa in the evening, pausing to look out at the mountain, its peak now catching the last light of day. The quiet is heavy, broken only by the distant sounds of the city settling down for the night. You know that every leader must decide when to act and when to wait. The signs are there, but the consequences of a wrong decision could be catastrophic, either for the city's safety or its future. As night falls, you gather the latest reports and consider your options. The city looks to you for guidance, expecting you to balance risk against reason. The mountain offers no answers, only questions that grow sharper with each passing day. In the silence of your study, you realize that the next step will require more than observation. It will demand judgment. and perhaps a choice that no one else can make. Inside your study, the room settles into a tense silence as you gather your closest advisors. The afternoon light slants across the maps and scrolls on your desk. 3 men sit across from you, each representing a different way of seeing the world, and each convinced his knowledge is the key to Pompeii's future. Marcus Aurelius Fortunatus, the city's senior priest, sits upright in his white robes, a scroll of omens unrolled before him. He clears his throat and begins with a list of troubling signs: birds flying in erratic patterns, temple fires flickering and refusing to burn cleanly, sacred chickens ignoring their grain. The gods, he insists, are sending warnings. He spent the morning consulting the Sibylline books, poring over the ancient verses for guidance. His voice is steady as he recounts his findings. Entrails of sacrificed animals showing unnatural markings, smoke from offerings rising in twisted columns, and a persistent sense among the priests that something is deeply wrong. Marcus urges immediate sacrifices and public rituals, arguing that only a demonstration of piety can avert divine anger. He believes the city's safety depends on restoring the gods' favor, and he looks to you for swift action. Before you can respond, Gaius Pliny Secundus, your chief engineer, spreads a series of technical drawings and notes across the table. He's built bridges and aqueducts that have withstood earthquakes and storms, and his confidence comes from years of solving practical problems. Gaius dismisses the omens with a wave of his hand. He points to his measurements. Recent tremors, he explains, are well within the range of normal seismic activity for the region. He references other cities, Naples, Cumae, even Rome itself, that experience similar shaking without disaster. Vesuvius, he argues, has been quiet for centuries. He shows you charts comparing the frequency and intensity of recent tremors to records from other parts of the empire, insisting there is no evidence of imminent eruption. The ground shifts, the mountain breathes, but it has done so for as long as anyone can remember, he says. His solution is to reinforce a few buildings, check the aqueducts, and reassure the public. Gaius is certain that panic would do more damage than the mountain ever could. Lucius Caesius Bassus, your merchant advisor, listens to the debate with a furrowed brow, his fingers tapping a steady rhythm on a stack of shipping manifests. He spent his life negotiating contracts, tracking shipments and keeping Pompeii's trade routes open. Lucius reminds you that the city's prosperity depends on its reputation for stability. If word spreads that Pompeii is unsafe, ships will bypass the harbor, merchants will take their goods elsewhere, and the city's economy could collapse. He lays out the numbers. Lost revenue, broken contracts, families thrown into poverty. Lucius warns that even a temporary evacuation could have permanent consequences. He urges caution, recommending that you avoid any action that would send the wrong message to Rome or to Pompeii's trading partners. A hasty decision could ruin us for years to come, he says, his voice low. You listen closely as each man makes his case. The priest's voice is filled with urgency, insisting that the gods must be appeased. The engineer's tone is pragmatic, focused on the facts and the strength of Roman construction. The merchant's argument is cold but practical, rooted in the realities of commerce and the delicate balance that keeps the city thriving. Each advisor believes his perspective is the only rational path forward, and each is confident that history will prove him right. The debate continues, growing more heated as the afternoon wears on. Marcus insists that ignoring the gods is a risk no Roman should take. He points to the city's history, how previous disasters struck when omens were ignored, how the earthquake years ago was preceded by similar signs. He urges you to lead the people in public prayer, to offer sacrifices, and to declare a day of atonement. The gods have spoken, he says. It is our duty to listen. Gaius counters with the logic of science and engineering. He explains how the mountain's structure makes a sudden eruption unlikely. He describes the layers of rock and ash, the patterns of past seismic activity, and the ways Roman technology has adapted to the challenges of the land. He argues that the city's buildings are strong, that the aqueducts are secure, and that any problems can be addressed with careful maintenance. Fear is the real enemy, he says, looking you in the eye. If we lose our nerve, we lose everything. Lucius, meanwhile, presses the economic argument. He warns that merchants are already nervous. Some have started moving goods out of the city, and a few ships have left the harbour early. He predicts that any public sign of alarm will trigger a wave of departures, draining Pompeii of its wealth and leaving families destitute. He urges you to keep the peace, to project confidence, and to trust in the city's resilience. Trade is our lifeblood, he says. If we cut it off, we may never recover. As you weigh their arguments, you study the maps covering your desk. They show the city's layout, broad streets, sturdy walls, the intricate web of aqueducts and sewers that keep Pompeii running. You trace possible evacuation routes with your finger, considering how quickly the population could move if necessary. The harbour could offer escape by sea, but only if the ships stay in port. The main roads could funnel people out, but panic would turn order into chaos. The city's walls, designed for protection, could become deadly obstacles if crowds surged toward the gates all at once. You look at each man in turn, the priest's faith, the engineer's logic, the merchant's caution. Each offers a different kind of certainty, and each carries its own risks. If you act on the priest's warnings, you risk disrupting the city's economy and reputation. If you follow the engineer's advice, you may underestimate forces beyond human control. If you heed the merchant's counsel, you could sacrifice safety for the sake of appearances. The silence in the room grows heavier as the arguments settle. Your advisors watch you, searching your face for a sign of decision. You feel the responsibility pressing in from all sides, not just for your own family, but for the thousands who depend on your judgment. The wrong choice could mean disaster, whether from divine wrath, natural forces, or economic collapse. You pour a cup of wine, the ritual familiar, but offering little comfort. The taste is sharp, and you set the cup down with a steady hand. You ask a final round of questions about the reliability of the omens, the strength of the city's infrastructure, the readiness of the merchants to weather a downturn. Each advisor responds with the certainty of his experience, but none can offer guarantees. You thank them and dismiss the meeting, promising to weigh their counsel and announce your decision soon. As the door closes behind them, the quiet returns. You sit for a moment, listening to the distant sounds of the city. Voices in the street, the clatter of carts, the faint echo of a market. Outside, life goes on, but you sense the tension running beneath the surface. You rise from your desk and move to the window, looking out over the rooftops toward the mountain. The city streets stretch out below, busy with the routines of daily life. Yet you notice subtle changes. Merchants packing up early, groups of citizens speaking in low voices, glances cast toward the horizon. The order you've worked so hard to maintain feels more fragile than ever. You leave your study, stepping into the corridor as the light shifts and the sounds of commerce drift up from the streets. The city's daily business continues, but every decision now feels weighted with urgency. The patterns of urban life, so familiar, so carefully managed, begin to reveal cracks. You head toward the heart of Pompeii, where the pulse of the city is most visible, and where the first signs of change are already Commerce shapes every street you walk in Pompeii. The city's grid of straight paved roads forms the backbone of its daily life, and today you notice how every corner, every crossing, carries a rhythm of movement and exchange. Sandals scuff across raised sidewalks, carts rumble over stone blocks, and the voices of merchants drift from shaded stalls and open shop fronts. Roman engineers designed these streets for efficiency. Elevated walkways keep feet dry and safe. Stepping stones let people cross even when rain turns the roads into streams. and the spacing between stones fits cartwheels perfectly. These details aren't just clever, they're essential, and they remind you that this city is built on order. You step carefully over the worn crosswalk stones, their surfaces polished smooth by generations. Merchants line the thoroughfares, their displays arranged to catch the eye of anyone passing. A fish seller calls out the morning's catch, his hands moving quickly as he scales and guts a silver mullet. Baskets of figs and olives, amphorae of oil, bolts of dyed cloth. Every item has its place, and every seller knows the value of a good spot in the morning crowd. The air buzzes with the sound of deals being struck, coins clinking, and laughter from those with a little extra to spend. But beneath the surface, you sense a change. Some merchants pack their wares earlier than usual, glancing over their shoulders as they tie up crates and cover goods with cloth. A spice dealer who usually fills the air with the scent of cinnamon and pepper now keeps his baskets closed, the colours hidden from view. A jeweller displays only a few simple pieces, the rest tucked away. These are people who know how to read the mood of a crowd, and today their caution is clear. Conversations among citizens are quieter, more fragmented. Where you'd expect friendly greetings or jokes about the weather, you now hear brief nods and quick glances. People gather in small groups, their words muffled. As you pass, you catch hints of worry. Someone mentions a dream about fire. Another talks about sheep refusing to graze. A third wonders if the slow water at the fountain means something more. The usual easy flow of gossip and negotiation is replaced by a guarded edge. You pause outside a thermopolium, one of the city's busy street food counters. The marble counter is warm from the morning's fire, and steam rises from pots set into the surface. Workers, slaves, and freedmen crowd the space, grabbing bowls of stew or cups of wine before heading back to their labor. These places are usually filled with talk of races, wages, and daily frustrations, but today the conversation circles around odd events. A baker's bread that tastes wrong, mortar that won't set, water that seems off. The owner, who knows everyone by name, watches the door and listens more than he speaks. The city's infrastructure is visible everywhere you look. Fountains in every district pour fresh water from bronze spouts shaped like dolphins or lions. Citizens carry clay jars and buckets, filling them for their homes. The water tastes clean, but today a few people wrinkle their noses, saying something is different. Stone sewers run beneath the roads, carrying waste away and keeping the city healthier than most. Straight, paved roads connect every part of Pompeii, allowing carts and pedestrians to move goods quickly from the harbour to the heart of the city. Bakeries are easy to find by their smell alone. Bread bakes through the night, and by morning the scent drifts down every street. It's a sign of prosperity, a reminder that the city is well fed. Today, though, the aroma mingles with a sharper note. The sulphur drifting down from the mountain. Some people hurry past, covering their faces, and the bakers themselves seem uneasy, checking their ovens more often than usual. The choreography of the city's morning routine continues. Carts loaded with goods follow familiar patterns, drivers calling out warnings as they turn corners. Slaves carry jugs of water, amphorae of wine, baskets of fruit, always moving to avoid blocking the flow. Shopkeepers sweep their thresholds, arranging their wares to catch the early light. Everyone knows their place and their role, and the system works because it's been refined over years of practice. Vendors call out to passers-by, advertising fish, vegetables, pottery, and cloth. Their voices create a background hum. But today you notice that many keep one eye on the mountain. The usual confidence is missing. Even the most seasoned sellers seem distracted, their attention divided between customers and the looming peak. Vesuvius is always there, rising behind the city. Its slopes provide the grapes for wine, the olives for oil, the grain for bread. The mountain is a constant, a source of wealth and comfort. People trust it as they trust the city's walls or the harbor's steady trade. But today, the mountain's presence feels heavier. Its shadow stretches farther, and its silence draws more than a few uneasy glances. Pompeii's design makes commerce possible on a scale that supports thousands. The streets are wide enough for carts, but narrow enough for shade. Public fountains serve as gathering places, where people share news while collecting water. The city's layout allows goods to move smoothly from ship to market to home. The infrastructure, roads, sewers, aqueducts, fountains, yet beneath the routines you sense a building anxiety. The order that once seemed so solid now feels fragile. Merchants trust their instincts and their caution spreads. Citizens who once lingered at fountains now hurry home. The sulfur smell lingers sharper than before, and the smallest disruptions, a slow fountain, a crack in a wall, become reasons for concern. The city's prosperity, built on careful planning and daily cooperation, suddenly seems vulnerable. You continue your walk, noticing how every detail of the city's design, the raised sidewalks, the well-placed fountains, the efficient traffic, reflects Roman pride in organization. But the same systems that make life comfortable also depend on everything working perfectly. Today, you see how quickly confidence can shift, how easily routine can give way to uncertainty. As you reach a crossroads, you pause to watch the flow of people and goods. The city still moves, but the rhythm is off. You find yourself thinking about how closely the city's safety is tied to its infrastructure, and how even the best design can reveal hidden weaknesses when the ground beneath your feet begins to change. When you look at Pompeii's streets and buildings, you see the results of generations of Roman planning and engineering skill. The city's infrastructure is a point of pride, evidence that order, efficiency, and ingenuity shape daily life. But beneath this sense of accomplishment lies a hidden risk. The very features that make Pompeii a marvel of urban design could, in the wrong circumstances, become the reason so many lives are lost. You walk along the main thoroughfares, noticing the details that set Pompeii apart from less organized towns. Wide roads divide space between carts and pedestrians. Raised sidewalks keep feet dry and clean, while stepping stones allow people to cross without stepping into the runoff that flows through the gutters. These small innovations, the product of centuries of trial and error, make the city safer and more comfortable for everyone. Stone blocks, quarried from the mountain's earlier eruptions, are laid so precisely that weeds rarely find a foothold. Their gentle slope guides rainwater into the drainage channels, keeping the streets clear, even in a downpour. The aqueduct system is another achievement that still impresses you. Water from springs high on Vesuvius travels through a network of underground channels and stone arches, supplying public fountains and private homes alike. The city's fountains, often decorated with bronze lion heads or dolphins, are gathering points for neighbors exchanging news as they fill their jars. Wealthy families enjoy running water for their kitchens and baths, a luxury that speaks to Rome's mastery over nature. The system has spared Pompeii from the droughts and water shortages that trouble so many other cities. But as you move through the familiar streets, you start to see the city differently. The high walls built for privacy and protection now look like barriers that could trap people in an emergency. The same narrow side streets that create a sense of community and shade during the summer would become choke points if crowds tried to escape all at once. The stepping stones, so useful for crossing during the rains, would slow down anyone running for their life. The city's careful design, meant to keep order and beauty, could turn into a maze for anyone caught in a panic. You pass a public fountain where families gather, children playing in the cool water. The gentle splashing is a comforting sound, but you can't help noticing how the pipes and channels that bring water from the mountain also carry the faint vibrations of each tremor. The water seems to pulse with the mountain's unrest, a subtle reminder that nature's power still runs beneath the city's surface. The amphitheater is a testament to Roman ambition. a structure that can hold thousands, with entrances and stairways designed to move crowds efficiently during games and festivals. You've sat in the magistrate's seats, looking out over the tiers filled with cheering citizens. The design is clever, allowing people to come and go without chaos. But in a true emergency, the same stairways and gates could quickly become blocked, trapping people inside. The underground chambers, built for spectacle, add another layer of complexity that few have considered in terms of safety. Public baths are scattered across Pompeii, each one a center of daily life. The hypercourse systems that heat the pools and steam rooms are ingenious, circulating warmth through floors and walls. Here, citizens of all classes meet to bathe, exercise, and socialize. The baths are places of comfort and health, but you realize that in a disaster, these enclosed spaces could become dangerous traps. The same thick walls and clever heating that make them pleasant on ordinary days would make escape difficult if crowds rushed inside seeking shelter. The Forum, with its wide paved square and surrounding colonnades, is the heart of the city's public life. It's where markets are held, legal cases argued, and religious ceremonies performed. The open space is perfect for gathering, but it offers no protection from falling debris or ash. The basilica and temples nearby, with their solid construction, could provide some shelter, but only for those who reach them in time. The city's drainage system is another source of pride. Underground sewers and surface gutters keep the streets clean and dry, channeling waste and rainwater away from homes and businesses. Covered drains run beneath major roads, accessible through stone manholes for maintenance. This system keeps Pompeii healthier than many cities in the empire, but in a crisis, the covered drains would be of little use to people trying to escape. The infrastructure is built for daily convenience, not for disaster. You pause at a busy intersection where 4 streets meet, forming a small plaza surrounded by shops and homes. The layout is ideal for commerce and social life. A bakery on one corner, a metalworker's shop next door, apartments above. People gather here to exchange news and goods, but you can't help thinking how quickly such a space could fill with panic if danger struck. The same features that make the city vibrant, mixed-use neighborhoods, close quarters, easy access to everything, could become obstacles in a moment of crisis. Beneath the amphitheater, hidden from view, are the machinery and storage rooms that make grand spectacles possible. Trapdoors and lifts bring animals and fighters into the arena, while storerooms hold everything needed for the games. These underground spaces, a marvel of engineering, would be nearly impossible to evacuate quickly. The complexity that adds excitement to performances could turn deadly with little warning. Over years of public service, you've helped plan and fund many of these features. Each improvement was meant to make life safer, cleaner, and more enjoyable. Yet now, you see how these same choices could have unintended consequences. Thick walls, narrow alleys, and efficient water systems, all designed for stability, could turn against the people they were built to protect. The city's order, so carefully maintained, might make escape impossible for many. Roman efficiency has made Pompeii comfortable, prosperous, and admired. But that same efficiency, when faced with something as unpredictable as a volcanic eruption, could become a trap. The city's strengths, its walls, its streets, its public spaces, are double-edged. They support daily life, but offer little mercy when the world changes faster than design can adapt. As you look around at the city you've helped shape, the realization settles in. Every detail, every improvement was made with the best intentions, but the balance between safety and danger is always shifting. The features that bring pride in peaceful times can become liabilities in moments of crisis. You continue your walk, aware of the responsibility that comes with leadership. The city's design reflects the choices of its leaders, choices made in council meetings, on building sites, and in debates with fellow officials. Now, Those decisions will be tested in ways no one expected. With each step, you sense the weight of what's at stake. The city's future depends not just on stone and mortar, but on the wisdom of those who guide it. As the afternoon light fades, you know that the real test of leadership is not only in building for prosperity, but in preparing for the moment when everything is at risk. The pressures facing a Roman magistrate are never simple. Each decision carries consequences for thousands, and the demands of the city only grow more urgent as uncertainty spreads. Political pressures in Pompeii are never far from your mind. Each day you navigate a web of expectations, alliances and silent threats that shape every decision you make as a magistrate. The city's stability depends on your ability to balance the interests of merchants, the ambitions of elite families, and the anxieties of ordinary citizens, all while maintaining your own standing in the eyes of Rome. The morning starts with a visit from Marcus Crassus, whose family's wealth and influence have long been the backbone of local power. He arrives unannounced, his presence in your atrium a reminder that your authority is never absolute. Crassus speaks with practiced calm, but his words carry an unmistakable warning. The elite expect you to keep business running smoothly, no matter what rumors swirl about the mountain. Any decision that disrupts commerce or signals panic could cost you their support, and with it, your future in public life. Crassus doesn't threaten directly, but every sentence hints at the consequences of losing favor among those who matter most. Soon after, your study fills with fellow magistrates. The debate is sharp. Gaius Flavius argues for consulting the augurs, those trained to interpret omens for the state. He believes the signs, strange animal behavior, trembling ground, and odd smells are too serious to ignore. He wants to alert Rome, to send a formal report that might bring imperial resources or at least recognition of the risk. Marcus Tullius, by contrast, warns that such a move would mark Pompeii as unstable. He fears that drawing attention from Rome could jeopardize trade, lower property values, and invite oversight that might limit local autonomy. The room fills with tension as each man lays out his case, weighing the risks of action against the risks of inaction. You listen, aware that your own fortunes are tied to how you respond. Success in Roman politics often means keeping problems quiet, resolving issues locally, and projecting an image of calm control. But the situation unfolding outside your villa is unlike anything you've faced before. Every instinct tells you to avoid unnecessary alarm, yet you can't ignore the growing evidence that something is truly wrong. Merchants arrive next. They come not as a single group, but in pairs and small delegations, each with a different concern. One wants reassurance that the harbour will remain open and that no restrictions will be placed on shipping schedules. Another worries about contracts with Roman buyers, afraid that even talk of danger could send business elsewhere. A third is already seeing delays and shortages, blaming rumours for a slowdown in trade. The city's prosperity, you realize, is built on confidence. If that confidence breaks, the effects will ripple out in ways no magistrate can control. At the same time, a group of ordinary citizens requests an audience. Their spokesman, Lucius Maximus, is a craftsman known for his steady hand and honest work. He lays out the fears of his neighbours: dead livestock, water that tastes strange, children coughing in the night. These people have no wealth to fall back on, no estates in the countryside, no ships waiting in the harbour. They want to know if you will act to protect them, or if they are expected to face whatever comes alone. Their questions are direct, their expectations simple, but the weight of their trust is heavy. The city's calendar adds another layer of complexity. Gladiatorial games are scheduled for the coming month, with sponsors having spent lavishly to secure fighters, animals, and entertainment. These games are more than a spectacle, they are a display of Pompeii's prosperity and a key moment for local politics. Cancelling or postponing would anger powerful patrons and rob hundreds of workers of their wages. Yet to proceed as if nothing is wrong risks seeming blind to the dangers at hand. Every conversation, every meeting, is a negotiation. The elite families remind you of the upcoming elections, their support essential for any hope of advancement. They offer hints of future favors and opportunities, but also remind you, sometimes with a smile, sometimes with a cold glance, of what happens to those who lose their backing. Social isolation, economic hardship, and political irrelevance are never mentioned outright. But the message is clear. Your fellow officials debate not just the facts, but the optics. Should you hold public sacrifices to reassure the people, or would that only stoke fear? Should you issue a formal statement, or is it better to let rumors die on their own? Each option carries risks. Roman political culture values stability and predictability, rewarding those who keep the city running smoothly and punishing those who create controversy. Yet ignoring real danger can be even more damaging. Leaders who fail to protect their people often find themselves blamed for disasters after the fact. A message from Naples arrives, reporting similar phenomena: tremors, odd animal behavior, and complaints of sulfur in the air. The problem is no longer just local. Now, any decision you make will be watched by other cities and by political rivals eager to exploit any misstep. News travels quickly along the coast, and you know that word of panic or failure in Pompeii could undermine your standing not just here, but throughout the region. The pressure from the elite intensifies as the day goes on. They visit in person, send notes, and arrange private meetings. They offer reminders of how much you owe to their patronage, and how easily fortunes can change. Their suggestions are always framed as friendly advice, but the consequences of ignoring them are never far from your mind. You recognize the patterns. Roman governance is built on relationships, reputation, and the ability to manage competing interests. Success depends on projecting confidence, building consensus, and keeping the machinery of the city running. But the skills that serve you well in routine times, compromise patience, careful calculation, can become obstacles when events move faster than politics can respond. By midday, you decide to maintain the status quo. You announce that daily business will continue, that the city remains secure, and that you are monitoring the situation closely. This approach reassures your most important backers and avoids the risks of dramatic action based on incomplete information. It is the choice that Roman political culture expects. A demonstration of steady leadership, even when uncertainty presses in from all sides. As you prepare for another round of meetings and public appearances, you notice how the city's divisions become sharper. The wealthy discuss contingency plans and secure their valuables. Merchants whisper about shifting their assets. Ordinary citizens gather in small groups, watching the mountain and waiting for guidance. The city's social order holds, but you sense it growing more brittle with each passing hour. The demands of politics shape every response, every calculation. But as the day wears on, you begin to wonder how much control you truly have. The pressures of office are real, but there are forces at work that care nothing for status or reputation. The next challenge will show just how much power and how little you truly hold when the city's survival is at stake. When disaster strikes, the lines that separate rich from poor become more visible than ever. As the first ash drifts down from Vesuvius, grey and light as snow, you stand on your villa's terrace and watch the city's social order unravel in real time. The eruption doesn't erase class, it sharpens it, exposing who has the means to act and who is left with no choices at all. Your neighbour Marcus Crassus is the first to move. His servants rush to load a ceremonial chariot, not with family heirlooms or sentimental treasures, but with chests that clink with coins and silver. The finest horses in the city stamp at the marble steps, their black coats dusted with ash. Marcus meets your gaze for a moment, his face set and pale. In a few minutes he's gone, headed for the road to Naples, his escape made possible by wealth, planning, and the simple fact that he owns what he needs to survive. Behind him, his slaves remain at the villa's entrance, eyes fixed on the departing chariot. Roman law and custom bind them to their master's property. Even with ash falling and panic rising, they cannot leave without direct permission. If they run, they risk being hunted down and killed for theft or abandonment. If they stay, they face the same fate as the house itself. Their chains are both physical and legal, a reminder that in Rome, not everyone's life is their own to save. Across the district, other villa owners take advantage of the options their status provides. Some send word to country estates in the hills, instructing staff to prepare for their arrival. Others arrange for merchant ships to wait at distant harbours, ready to carry them far from danger. Gold and jewellery are packed into bags that can be carried easily, while furniture, art, and anything too heavy to move is left behind. For the wealthy, survival is a matter of logistics, a question of how quickly they can convert status into mobility. On the street below, a cloth merchant and his family face a different kind of calculation. Their entire fortune is tied up in the bolts of fabric stacked in their shop. Years of trading, saving, and careful negotiation. The father stands in the doorway, torn between saving the business and saving his family. With only one small cart, they load what they can. The most valuable silks and dyed wools, leaving behind shelves of linen and tools. The mother clutches her youngest child, while the older son helps his father tie down the bundles. Every item left behind is a loss that may never be recovered. In the house across the way, a master unlocks the chains of his household slaves and tells them to go. Some fall to their knees in gratitude, others stand frozen, unsure where to run or what freedom means in a city about to be buried. The gesture is both mercy and abandonment. Without a master's protection, these men and women have no claim to food, shelter, or safety. Their sudden freedom is as terrifying as the disaster itself. At the gladiator barracks, the reality is even more stark. The strongest men in Pompeii, trained to fight wild beasts and armed opponents, are locked behind iron bars. Their skills mean nothing now. Their value as entertainment keeps them imprisoned, waiting for a decision from trainers who may have already fled. The ash falls just as thick on the cells as it does on the streets, and the fighter's strength cannot open doors made to hold them in. Street children, who know every shortcut and hidden alley, find their knowledge useless. Ash seeps through cracks and under doors, filling spaces once used for hiding. Their survival skills, so effective against human threats, are powerless against a force that ignores walls and boundaries. The city's most vulnerable are left to fend for themselves, with no one to count on and nowhere safe to go. Inside your own home, the weight of responsibility settles on your shoulders. Your servants look to you for orders, their lives tied to your decisions. Roman custom is clear. A master is expected to protect his household, but the law places the greatest obligation on family. Your wife urges you to focus on your children, to leave before conditions worsen. You know that every moment spent trying to save others is a moment lost for your own escape. The tension between duty and survival is real, and every glance from your staff is a silent plea for guidance. Elsewhere, the forum, once the stage for displays of status and ceremony, becomes a sorting ground for survival. The wealthy gather first, calling for horses, carriages, and guards to clear a path. Their exits are quick and organized, planned in advance, and executed with the help of resources unavailable to most. Others, lacking money or connections, wait in growing crowds, hoping for a chance to follow. Some beg for space in departing carriages, offering jewelry or promises of repayment. Most are turned away. Patrician families have rehearsed escape plans since the first tremors. Messages went out to relatives in other cities, arrangements made for ships to anchor just beyond the harbour, valuables converted into coins and gems that can be hidden or carried. Their actions aren't just the result of fear, they're the product of a lifetime spent preparing for uncertainty, a privilege that comes with wealth. To those left behind, it looks like cowardice. To those leaving, it is simply survival. The further the ash spreads, the clearer it becomes that disaster does not erase social divisions. It magnifies them. Those with resources move first and fastest, while everyone else waits for opportunities that may never come. The city's systems, so effective in daily life, now function as barriers. Escape routes fill with the carriages of the rich, while the poor travel on foot, burdened with whatever they can carry. Slaves and freedmen are left to make impossible choices. Even as the mountain's threat grows, the hierarchy of Pompeii holds firm. The same laws and customs that create order in peace now determine who gets a chance at survival. The city's prosperity, once a source of pride, becomes a dividing line between those who live and those who die. The eruption is not an equalizer, it is a mirror, showing the true nature of Roman society when tested by crisis. You realize that, for all the talk of Roman virtue and shared citizenship, the reality is far more complicated. The mountain does not care about status, but every human decision made in its shadow does. Warnings and escape plans reach some households before others. Access to transportation, information, and safe shelter is determined by wealth, not by need. The disaster reveals with brutal honesty who matters most in the eyes of the city. As the ash continues to fall, the city's routines break down. Markets close, temples empty, and the familiar rhythms of commerce and ceremony stop. In their place, new patterns emerge, lines for water, desperate negotiations for a place in a departing cart, silent prayers offered in doorways. The social fabric stretches thin, each thread tested by fear and uncertainty. In these moments, you see how privilege shapes not just comfort, but the very possibility of survival. The choices available to you are not available to all. The burden of leadership grows heavier as the crisis deepens, pressing you to decide how much responsibility you bear for those who cannot save themselves. The city's most privileged spaces, its grand villas, baths and gardens, stand in stark contrast to the desperation unfolding in the streets. The comforts of wealth remain, but they offer only temporary refuge from the reality outside. Even as you seek a moment of calm, the distant rumble of the mountain reminds you that no amount of luxury can hold back what's coming. Your afternoon brings you to the public baths, a place where the boundaries between luxury and responsibility are impossible to ignore. Here, the city's elite gather in an environment that is both a testament to Roman engineering and a symbol of everything that sets their lives apart from those outside these marble walls. Steam rises from the heated pools, swirling around columns and statues, and for a moment, it's easy to believe that comfort and control are permanent features of your world. The Stabian baths, like all of Pompeii's finest, run on a scale that most citizens can only imagine. Hot water flows through bronze pipes, heated by furnaces that burn around the clock. Slaves tend these fires, hauling wood from distant forests, their labor hidden behind the scenes. The cost of maintaining this comfort is enormous, but it creates a space where the city's most powerful can relax, negotiate, and enjoy the best that Roman civilization has to offer. Every detail is designed for pleasure. Marble floors warmed by hypocausts, benches carved for comfort, and niches filled with statues of gods who watch over bathers with impassive eyes. You enter through an archway that frames your arrival. The air is thick with the scent of oil and clean linens, and your feet never touch cold stone. Slaves have prepared fresh towels, arranged oils and scrapers, and wait silently for your command. Other wealthy citizens nod as you pass, some deep in conversation about grain shipments or political alliances, others simply enjoying the quiet luxury of the baths. This is where business and pleasure blend, where decisions that shape the city's future are made over cups of wine or in whispered conversations between pools. Yet, as you move through the changing rooms and step into the warm water, the weight of your position presses in. The comfort is real, but so is the knowledge that this world is built on the work of many who will never enjoy its benefits. The slaves who tend the fires, the laborers who built the hypocausts, the farmers who supply the wood and oil, all make this luxury possible. yet none of them will ever experience it as you do. The contrast is sharper today as reports from the countryside grow more troubling. A messenger interrupts, bringing news of livestock fleeing the mountain slopes. Shepherds find their flocks huddled in valleys, refusing to graze. Farmers report oxen breaking through fences, and even household pets are restless, dogs howling, cats hiding in places they never have before. These stories follow you through the baths, echoing in your mind even as you try to focus on the comfort of warm water and the steady rhythm of conversation. The pools themselves are a marvel of design. Each is kept at a precise temperature, and the marble edges are polished smooth by generations of bathers. You lower yourself into the water, feeling the tension of the day begin to fade. Steam blurs the outlines of the other bathers, making the space feel private, almost secret. Voices carry in the mist, sometimes clear, sometimes just a murmur, as business and gossip mix in the air. In the steam rooms, the heat becomes intense, and the ritual of sweating out the city's dust and worries feels almost sacred. Slaves pour water over hot stones, filling the room with clouds of vapor that open your pores and clear your mind. Still, the sense of ease is fragile. Even the finest wines, poured into silver cups and served with practiced grace, taste different now. There's a faint sulfur note that lingers on the tongue, a reminder that the mountain's presence can't be ignored, no matter how carefully you try to preserve normalcy. You notice other bathers pausing after a sip, exchanging glances, but no one says anything directly. The rituals of luxury continue, but they feel more like a shield than a celebration. Looking out through the bath's windows, you see the gardens of your villa. Marble statues line the paths, fountains play over imported plants, and every detail is meant to display taste and power. These gardens are more than decoration. They're settings for private meetings, quiet walks, and negotiations that never reach the public eye. They demonstrate what it means to belong to the city's elite, to have both the means and the obligation to shape Pompeii's future. But with privilege comes responsibility. You can't ignore the reality that every decision you make ripples outward, affecting not just your family and peers, but the thousands who depend on the city's stability. The contrast between your comfort and the growing anxiety outside grows harder to ignore. Messages arrive with increasing urgency. Livestock gone, wells running dry, the sulfur smell growing stronger. You know that your role demands more than enjoying the luxuries of status. It requires action, judgment, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Conversations in the baths drift to the amphitheater, visible through the windows. The games are scheduled soon, and the pressure to provide entertainment is real. The amphitheater is a symbol of order and control, a place where the city comes together to celebrate and forget its worries. The cost of staging these events keeps rising, but so does the need to maintain public morale. You weigh the expense against the benefit, knowing that a single misstep could tip the city into unrest. You linger in the warm water, watching the steam curl around the ceiling. The atmosphere is peaceful, but your mind is restless. Every comfort here is built on a foundation that now feels less stable. The mountain's warnings grow louder, and even the most privileged can't pretend not to notice. The responsibility you carry is more than personal. It is woven into every aspect of the city's life, from the baths to the markets, from the gardens to the games. As you leave the baths and return to your villa, the late afternoon light casts long shadows across the gardens. You pause, listening to the distant sounds of the city. Children playing, merchants calling out their wares, the splash of water in the fountains. Everything looks as it always has, but you sense a change in the air, a tension that wasn't there before. You step inside, aware that the choices you make in the coming hours will matter more than ever. The city outside is waiting, uncertain and uneasy. You move toward your study, where messages and reports pile up, each one demanding attention. The luxury that once seemed secure now feels like a fragile barrier, and your responsibility as a leader is clearer than ever. In the quiet that settles before evening, you find yourself listening for something more. A sign, a sound, a change that will tell you what comes next. The city holds its breath, and you, for a moment, do the same. The first sign that something is different comes as a low vibration, subtle at first, but growing stronger with each passing second. You're standing in the atrium of your villa, listening for the ordinary sounds of the city, when a deep rumble begins to rise from the earth. It's not the familiar jolt of a passing tremor. This is something continuous, a physical force that travels up through the floor and into your bones, making your teeth ache and your heart race in your chest. You sense it before you hear it, the feeling that the ground beneath you is no longer solid, that something vast and unseen is moving beneath the city. The sound arrives next. At first, it's easy to mistake for thunder rolling in from the bay, a distant rolling boom that echoes off the hills, but thunder fades. This noise only grows, swelling from a background murmur to a roar that fills every room, rattling the glassware on shelves and making the marble columns hum. The air itself seems to vibrate, carrying a pressure that makes your ears ring and your skin prickle. You look to the mountain, and for the first time, you see Vesuvius not as a backdrop, but as the source of a power you can't ignore. A column of ash bursts from the peak, rising straight into the sky. It's thin at first, but quickly widens, spreading out like the branches of a pine tree. The cloud grows darker with every second, blotting out the sun and turning afternoon into dusk. The light changes, shifting from gold to grey, and the city's colours fade to shadows. The familiar outlines of buildings, statues and gardens are suddenly strange, as if you're seeing them through a veil. The ash cloud expands, stretching across the horizon until it covers almost everything you can see. The smell hits you next. Sulphur and burning stone fill the air, sharp and bitter. It's a scent that doesn't just sting your nose, it seems to settle in your throat and lungs, making every breath an effort. Underneath the sulphur is something metallic, a taste that lingers on your tongue and leaves your mouth dry. You cough, wiping your face, and realize that your skin is already dusted with a fine layer of grey powder. Outside, the city reacts in slow motion. People step into the streets, looking up at the sky with confusion that quickly turns to fear. Merchants abandon their carts. Customers leave coins scattered on counters, and children stop their games to cling to their parents. Birds wheel overhead, then begin to fall, their wings coated in ash. Dogs howl, their voices rising in a chorus that echoes off stone walls. The routines of daily life dissolve as everyone turns their attention to the mountain. You watch as the first ash falls. It floats down in flakes, drifting on the wind like the petals of dead flowers. At first it seems almost gentle, soft, silent, and strangely beautiful as it settles on rooftops and in fountains. But as the minutes pass, the ash thickens. It clings to clothing and hair, mixes with sweat to form a paste on your skin, and makes every movement feel heavy. You brush it from your toga, but it returns faster than you can clear it away. The city's white marble turns grey, and the streets grow slippery underfoot. The noise from the mountain grows louder, drowning out every other sound. The roar is constant now, punctuated by sharp cracks and explosions as rocks and debris are hurled skyward. Shockwaves travel through the ground, making the walls tremble and the water in fountains ripple. The force of each blast is something you feel as much as hear. A reminder that the mountain's power is beyond anything humans can control. In the forum, people gather in confusion. Some look to the priests, hoping for guidance or reassurance. Others shout for their families, trying to find loved ones in the growing chaos. The city's leaders attempt to organize, but their voices are lost in the noise. Panic spreads in waves, moving from street to street as the ash falls thicker and the air grows harder to breathe. You see a baker still holding a loaf of bread, frozen in place, his eyes wide as he stares at the sky. A merchant's cart overturns, spilling pottery into the street, but no one stops to help. The familiar order of the city is gone, replaced by a desperate need to survive. The ash is everywhere now. It covers the fountains, fills the gutters and piles up in doorways. You taste it with every breath, feel it scratching your throat and stinging your eyes. The city's famous baths and gardens disappear under a layer of grey. Statues of gods and heroes lose their features, their faces erased by a rain of stone and dust. The air grows darker, and the lamps you light cast only a weak glow against the swirling gloom. You try to give orders, to organize your household and neighbors, but the noise and confusion make it almost impossible. Slaves and servants look to you for direction, their faces streaked with tears and ash. Some try to gather valuables. Others cling to each other, unsure where to go. You shout instructions, but your words are swallowed by the mountain's roar. The sense of control you've always relied on slips away, replaced by a growing awareness that nothing you do can stop what's happening. The falling ash makes the streets treacherous. People slip and fall, struggling to keep their footing as the ground disappears beneath a shifting carpet of dust. The air thickens, making it hard to see more than a few steps ahead. Lamps and torches flicker, their light swallowed by the darkness. You hear coughing and choking. In moments like this, the city's infrastructure, its roads, walls and aqueducts, offers little help. The same features that made Pompeii efficient and prosperous now trap people in narrow alleys and behind locked gates. The Forum, once a place of gathering and debate, becomes a place of confusion and fear. The amphitheatre, baths and temples offer shelter from the falling ash. But they also fill quickly, becoming crowded and dangerous as people rush for safety. You notice how quickly the social order changes. The wealthy, who once moved through the city with confidence, now scramble alongside everyone else, their status meaningless in the face of nature's force. Servants and masters, merchants and labourers, all are equal as they search for shelter and air. The mountain pays no attention to rank or reputation. Its ash falls on every roof and every head. As the eruption continues, the city grows quieter. The roar of the mountain is constant, but human voices fade. The streets empty, the markets close, and the routines of daily life vanish beneath a layer of ash. The world outside your villa has changed, and you realize that nothing will return to the way it was. You move through your home, checking on family and staff, gathering what you can carry. The air inside is thick and hot, filled with the smell of sulfur and dust. You hear the distant sound of hooves, someone's horses being readied, the hurried shouts of handlers in the street. Even the most ornate possessions seem unimportant now, their value reduced to what can be carried or used to aid escape. Somewhere nearby, you hear the metallic clatter of a chariot being prepared. The sound stands out against the background of falling ash and distant thunder, a reminder that, even as the city faces destruction, symbols of status and power still have a place. You glance toward the courtyard, uncertain whether to admire the craftsmanship or question the choices that led to this moment. The mountain has spoken, and every decision you make from here will be shaped by its voice. In the courtyard of Marcus Aurelius Scaurus' estate, the ceremonial chariot stands out, even as ash begins to drift from the sky. It's impossible not to notice how the chariot, with its gleaming bronze medallions and polished surfaces, seems almost out of place in this moment of crisis. The afternoon light, filtered through a sky now streaked with grey, still catches on the bronze, casting golden flashes across the paving stones. This is not a vehicle built for escape or endurance. It's a symbol, one that speaks to the ambitions, pride, and wealth of Pompeii's elite. You move closer, taking in the details that separate this chariot from any ordinary form of transportation. The body curves with a grace that only master craftsmen can achieve. Every inch is covered in bronze reliefs, each telling a story from the myths that every educated Roman knows. Jupiter hurls his bolts at the Titans, the muscles in his arms rendered so finely you can almost see them tense. Mars leads a charge of armored soldiers, his cloak swirling behind him in a wind that's been frozen in metal. Venus rises from the sea, a form delicate and perfectly proportioned, surrounded by waves that seem to shimmer and move as you walk past. You run your hand along the chariot's side, feeling the cool metal and the raised lines of the designs. It's clear that the artists who built this piece had skills that went beyond simple function. Horses are sculpted in mid-rear, their manes flowing. Warriors clash in scenes so intricate you can pick out the emotion in their faces. The wheels themselves are carved with patterns that catch the light at every angle, beautiful, but almost too delicate for real travel. These are wheels meant to be seen, not to cross rough roads or carry supplies. Marcus approaches, his usual confidence replaced by a restless energy. He talks about leaving for Rome, citing urgent business with officials, but his eyes keep flicking toward the mountain. His hands tremble as he gestures to the chariot, and his words come quickly, as if he's in a hurry to be anywhere but here. You've known Marcus for years. He's always been careful, calculating, and proud of his composure. Today, that's gone. He's not just preparing for a journey, he's preparing for an escape. The chariot's decorations are more than just art. They're statements about power, belief, and status. The mythological scenes are chosen carefully, not just to impress, but to claim a connection to the gods and to Rome itself. Jupiter's victory over the Titans, Mars's triumph in battle, Venus's beauty, all of these are meant to tie Marcus's family to divine favor and imperial strength. Owning such a chariot is its own kind of announcement. I have the resources, the connections, and the taste to command the best. Looking at the chariot, you can't help but think about what it represents in a city where most people will never own anything close to this. A merchant might have a sturdy cart for business, but only the wealthiest can afford something built purely for display. The cost of the chariot could support a dozen families for a year, or pay the wages of skilled craftsmen for months. It's luxury distilled into metal and wood, a reminder of how far the gap is between those who have and those who do not. The stables nearby hold horses that match the chariot's splendor. Their coats are brushed until they shine, and their harnesses are decorated with the same care as the vehicle itself. Even the stable hands seem uneasy, whispering about how the horses have grown restless, refusing to settle at night and shying at every sound. It's as if the animals sense the tension in the air, the shift in the world that everyone else is beginning to feel. You watch as Marcus oversees preparations. Servants load chests into the chariot, boxes that clink with coins and silver, not the personal treasures you might expect in a moment of flight. The horses are harnessed with practiced care, though their ears flick nervously and their hooves scrape the stone. Marcus's voice is sharp as he gives instructions, but you notice he keeps glancing at the sky, measuring the deepening gloom as the ash cloud spreads. This chariot is more than a possession. It's a sign of connections that reach far beyond Pompeii. The medallions reference military victories and alliances with powerful Roman families. The craftsmanship shows ties to the finest workshops in the empire. Owning it means Marcus has both the wealth to commission such a piece and the influence to see it delivered across provinces. In times of peace, this would be a source of pride and social capital. Now, it's a tool for survival and a signal that those with means are acting on information they may not share. You can't ignore the message in Marcus's sudden departure. If someone this well-connected is leaving, what does he know? Wealthy Romans often hear things before anyone else. Their networks of contacts, political, commercial, even religious, stretch across the empire. Marcus's urgency suggests he's not just fleeing a rumor, he's responding to a warning that hasn't yet reached the rest of the city. As you watch the chariot roll out of the courtyard, the reality of social divisions becomes even clearer. The ceremonial chariot, so carefully crafted to project permanence, is now a vehicle for escape. Its presence here, and its use in this moment, makes you question how much of Pompeii's order is built on confidence that can vanish in an instant. The things that once symbolized stability, wealth, art, tradition, now seem fragile, even hollow, when the ground beneath the city begins to shift. The conversation with Marcus lingers as you return to your own home. He spoke of duty and business, but his actions spoke louder. You're left to wonder about the choices you'll have to make if things get worse. The chariot's mythological scenes, Jupiter's thunderbolts, Mars's victories, Venus's beauty, are meant to reassure, but now they feel like echoes from a world that's disappearing under the weight of ash. Standing in the quiet that follows, you realize how quickly symbols of power lose their meaning when faced with real danger. The chariot, so dazzling in the sunlight, is just as vulnerable as the people it was meant to impress. The city's elite may have more resources, but no one is immune to what's happening. Even the finest craftsmanship and the deepest connections can only do so much in the face of nature's force. You turn away from the empty courtyard, the sound of the chariot's wheels fading into the distance. The air is thicker now, the ash falling faster, and the city's routines are breaking down. What once seemed like the pinnacle of civilization now feels like a fragile shell, easily cracked by something far beyond human control. As you make your way back toward the heart of the city, you can hear the growing unrest in the streets. People are gathering, looking for answers, for leadership, for any sign that someone knows what to do next. The weight of responsibility settles on your shoulders, heavier than any bronze medallion or ceremonial chariot. The city is looking for direction, and as the sky darkens, you know that your role is about to change in ways you never expected. Leadership in the midst of catastrophe isn't about ceremony or speeches. It's about making choices when every option carries risk, and the cost is measured in lives. As ash thickens in the air, you stand at the crossroads between your villa and the Forum, watching your family prepare for their escape, while the city's citizens gather in growing numbers, desperate for guidance. Your wife shields your youngest child beneath her cloak, both of them dusted grey. Your son moves swiftly, loading what valuables he can, his face set with determination and fear. They urge you to come with them, but your attention is pulled toward the city centre, where voices call your name, pleading for direction. You hesitate only a moment. The urge to protect your family is strong, but the weight of responsibility presses heavier. The streets are already filling with people who once greeted you with respect, and now look for certainty as the world unravels. The mountain's roar is constant, muffling voices and making every command feel urgent. You know that every decision, where to send people, which routes to trust, how to keep order, could mean the difference between life and death for hundreds or thousands. You choose to run to the Forum, leaving your family to begin their journey without you. The pain of that choice is sharp, but you move quickly, feet sinking into the ash that now covers the streets like a thick, shifting carpet. Each step is harder than the last, the powder clogging your sandals and stinging your eyes. The city you know so well is vanishing beneath your feet. Reaching the Forum, you climb the steps of the basilica, using the elevation to project your voice above the chaos. The square below is packed with faces, merchants, laborers, freedmen, and slaves, all distinctions erased by shared fear. You see people you've judged in court, neighbors from your street, and strangers who now look to you as their last hope. The air is thick, every breath a struggle, but you force your voice to carry, shouting directions over the roar and the sound of falling debris. You assess the options as quickly as you can. The harbour could offer escape by sea, but you've heard that many ships have already left. Inland roads are clogged, and the danger of bottlenecks is real. You direct families with young children toward the Nuceria gate, hoping the wider road will keep them moving. Those who are able-bodied and unencumbered, you urge to try for the harbour, but only if they can move quickly. For others, you order them into the basilica, reasoning that the thick stone roof may offer at least some protection from falling debris. The crowd presses in, people grabbing your toga, begging for answers. A baker you've known for years pleads with you, his family huddled close, asking if your directions will save them. You want to offer reassurance, but you know you're guessing, making the best decisions you can with incomplete information. The mountain is in control, and all you can do is try to keep panic from spreading. Chunks of pumice rain down, bouncing off columns and shattering tiles. You duck as a rock strikes the steps near your feet, sending shards flying. The noise is deafening, a mix of the mountain's roar and the sharp crack of stone against stone. You realize that staying in the open is dangerous, but you hold your ground long enough to organize small groups, assigning the strongest to help the weak, sending runners ahead to scout routes, and urging everyone to move together rather than scatter in fear. Ash now covers the forum ankle deep, and people begin to collapse from the toxic air. You watch as some recover after resting, while others don't get back up. The urgency of evacuation grows, but the mountain's assault is relentless. You see children carried by strangers, elders supported by neighbors, and realize that survival now depends on cooperation as much as leadership. Your voice grows hoarse from shouting, throat raw from the ash and sulfur. Still, you keep calling out instructions, knowing that your words are the only thing holding back chaos. If you stop, panic will take over, and the resulting stampede could be as deadly as the eruption itself. You focus on keeping people moving, giving them something to hold on to, a sense of order, even as everything familiar slips away. You watch as the city's landmarks disappear beneath the ash. Statues lose their faces, fountains vanish, and the streets become unrecognizable. The places that defined your life, temples, markets, the theater, are erased in minutes. Every memory tied to these spaces is buried under a layer of grey. The sense of loss is overwhelming, but you push it aside, focusing on the lives still within your reach. The responsibility weighs heavier with each passing moment. You know you can't save everyone. For every person who escapes, another is trapped or lost. The limits of human authority are stark. No amount of planning or power can stop the mountain. Leadership, you realize, isn't about control. It's about standing with your people, making decisions in uncertainty, and accepting the cost of those choices. You find yourself moving constantly, organizing, directing, comforting, and sometimes simply bearing witness. The city's order, built over generations, unravels in hours. Still, you refuse to abandon the principle that leadership means serving others, even when the price is your own safety. You help form lines for evacuation, guide people to shelter, and try to keep families together. Every action is a small act. As the ash deepens and the air grows heavier, your movements slow. The crowd thins as some escape, others fall, and a few find shelter where they can. You keep shouting until your voice gives out, then use gestures and signs. The mountain's roar drowns out almost everything, but you keep trying, knowing that even a little order can save lives. The end arrives faster than you expect. The ash is now knee-deep, the air almost impossible to breathe. The city is silent except for the constant rumble of Vesuvius and the occasional cry for help. You look around at the people who remain, faces streaked with ash, eyes wide with fear, hands reaching for direction. You realize that leadership, in the end, is not about survival or glory. It's about presence, about refusing to abandon those who look to you, even when you have nothing left to give. As the last of the crowd moves out of the forum, you linger a moment longer, watching the city disappear under layers of ash. The world you knew is gone, replaced by a silence broken only by the mountain's voice. You gather what strength you have left and begin to make your way back toward your villa, drawn by the thought of those who remain there, your family, your household, the people whose lives are intertwined with your own. The city's fate is sealed, but your responsibilities are not yet finished. Evening brings you home, where the relationships that shape your daily life now reveal truths you can't ignore. As you step through the entrance of your villa, the atmosphere inside feels changed. The familiar routines of your household staff, once as steady as the ticking of a water clock, have shifted into something tense and uncertain. The marble floors, usually alive with the muted rhythm of servants at work, now echo with hurried footsteps and whispered exchanges that fall silent when you approach. You notice groups of slaves dispersing quickly, eyes averted, conversations cut short. The sense of order that has always defined your home is replaced by a quiet urgency, as if the people who keep your household running are preparing for something you can't see. Servants and slaves form the core of Roman domestic life. In your home, their roles are clearly defined. Freedmen oversee business and correspondence. Experienced household slaves manage daily logistics, and new arrivals learn by watching and imitating. Each group fits into a hierarchy shaped by years of tradition, law, and personal loyalty. Freedmen, having earned their status through years of service, walk a careful line between independence and deference. Long-serving slaves occupy a space of trust, valued for their knowledge but always aware of their legal limitations. The newest slaves, unfamiliar with the household's rhythms, work under close supervision, eager to prove their worth. Tonight, the usual boundaries feel blurred. Even your most trusted staff seem distracted, moving through their tasks with a mechanical efficiency that leaves little room for the small courtesies and gestures you've come to expect. There are conversations in corners, glances exchanged between people who rarely interact. You sense a current of shared knowledge running through the household, something they're not telling you. The realization stings. You have always believed in the loyalty of those who serve you, but now you wonder what they know that you do not. Marcus Antonius, your personal slave for over 30 years, breaks protocol in a way you've never seen. He interrupts your meal, voice trembling as he asks for a moment of your time. He tells you that the servants are afraid, more afraid than he has ever seen. Rumors about the mountain, stories of omens, and strange animal behavior have spread through the slave quarters. Some say the gods are angry, others whisper about disasters from the past. Marcus speaks with a frankness that would usually be unthinkable, but the fear in his eyes is unmistakable. He is not just worried for himself, he is worried for you and your family. The slave quarters are cramped, functional spaces on the ground floor, home to the people who make your life possible. Each room holds several beds, a few personal items, and little else. Most slaves own nothing beyond their clothes and a handful of keepsakes. Maybe a carved wooden figure, a scrap of cloth from home, or a lucky coin. Tonight, you notice changes. Bundles of belongings appear in corners, small treasures tucked away or missing altogether. Slaves who used to compete for your approval now move with a shared sense of purpose, packing quietly, glancing at doors and windows as if measuring escape routes. They are preparing for something, and it's clear their plans don't depend on your permission. These subtle shifts in behavior reflect a deeper truth about Roman society. Masters depend on slaves for every comfort, every routine, every piece of order in their lives. Slaves, in turn, depend on their masters for food, shelter, and protection from a world where they have no legal standing. The relationship is built on mutual need, but also on a balance of power that is never truly equal. In times of crisis, that balance can shift quickly. Tonight, you see how dependence and control can give way to fear and self-preservation. Gaius Flavius, your steward and a freedman who has managed your affairs for 15 years, approaches you with a suggestion that feels more urgent than usual. He proposes moving the family to your country house, citing the mountain air as a possible relief from the sulfur that now lingers in every room. On the surface, it's a practical idea, one he's offered before during times of illness or unrest. But tonight, his tone is different. He stands a little straighter, his words more careful, but his eyes are fixed on yours. searching for understanding. He's not just worried about comfort, he's worried about survival. Freedmen like Gaius have a unique position. They owe their status to your family, but their loyalty is shaped by years of shared interests and mutual benefit. Unlike slaves, they can afford to disagree, to offer advice that might go against your wishes if they believe it's necessary. Gaius's suggestion carries weight, not just because of his experience, but because he has always put your household's well-being first. Tonight, though, his advice seems to come from a place of fear that goes beyond business or reputation. In Roman households, the bonds between masters and slaves can sometimes blur the lines of strict hierarchy. Decades of shared experience can build a kind of loyalty that survives even in moments of danger. Slaves who have grown old in your service may feel a sense of duty to protect the family, just as masters might feel responsible for the fate of those who depend on them. Yet, in a crisis like this, those bonds are tested. The instinct you watch as your cooks, cleaners, and attendants exchange quiet words, their routines disrupted by a sense of urgency that you can't quite interpret. They know the city's rhythms better than anyone. When the animals grow restless, when the air shifts, when something beneath the surface feels wrong. Their warnings, once dismissed as superstition, now seem like signals you should have heeded sooner. The people closest to the earth, who spend their days working outdoors or tending to the details you overlook, are often the first to sense when something is truly amiss. As the evening wears on, you try to reassure your household, falling back on the authority that has always settled disputes and quelled fears. You remind them of the villa's strength, the city's order, the power of Roman discipline. Some listen, nodding out of habit, but you can see the doubt in their faces. Others continue their quiet preparations, unconvinced that tradition and status will protect them from what's coming. You realize that for all your education and authority, your understanding of the world is shaped by distance from the realities your servants face every day. Their instincts, honed by years of hard labor and close observation, are telling them to prepare for the worst. The knowledge you once dismissed as irrelevant now feels vital. In this moment, the survival of your household may depend as much on their wisdom as on your leadership. The villa grows quieter as night falls. The sounds of packing, whispered conversations, and restless movement fill the spaces where laughter and routine once lived. You sense that the choices you make in the coming hours will matter more than any decision you faced before, not just for your family, but for everyone under your roof. Somewhere outside, the mountain's rumble grows louder. You catch glimpses of your staff watching you, waiting to see what you will do next. Their trust, their fear, and their hope all rest on your next move. The moment for ordinary leadership has passed. Now, as the ash deepens and the city's future narrows to a single night, you feel the weight of a decision that can't be postponed. If you had to make one last decision with no tomorrow left, what would it be? This is the moment when everything you've built, every relationship, and every principle is tested against the reality of disaster. Ash now reaches your waist, making each step feel like moving through wet, heavy sand that clings to your legs and drags you down. The city around you is unrecognizable. Buildings groan and crack under the weight of debris that falls without pause, slate grey and relentless. Roof tiles slip and shatter on the ground. Beams buckle and walls collapse. Pompeii, the city you've guided and protected, is being dismantled by the mountain's fury, stone by stone. Above the city, the sky glows with the red and orange of fire and molten rock. The pyroclastic flow, an avalanche of burning gas and stone, surges down the mountain, unstoppable and silent at first, then roaring as it overtakes everything in its path. You watch it sweep across fields and roads, swallowing trees and farmhouses, erasing the landscape. The wall of destruction is impossibly fast, moving with a force that nothing can withstand. You know it will reach the city within minutes. Your horse stands where you left it near the basilica steps, nostrils flaring, hooves shifting nervously in the ash. The path to Naples is still open, just barely. You could mount up, follow your family's trail, and try to outrun what's coming. They left hours ago, pleading with you to join them, their faces drawn with worry and love. The choice to leave is still yours, but only for a moment longer. All around you, people are trapped. Some are buried in buildings that have collapsed under the weight of ash and stone. Their cries for help cut through the mountain's roar. Voices you recognize, calling your name, calling for anyone. A woman's scream rises from beneath a pile of tiles. A child's voice pleads from a blocked doorway. An old man calls for help from the ruins of his shop. These are not strangers. They are citizens you've judged and protected. Neighbors who greeted you in the forum. Workers who built the city's roads and homes. Your mind races through the possibilities. You remember your wife's final words, a plea to put your family first, to survive for their sake. You remember your children's faces, the way they looked back at you as they left, hoping they'd see you again. They trust your judgment, but they also need you alive. The urge to run is strong. Every instinct tells you that staying means certain death. You've done all you can to organize evacuations, to send people towards safety, to keep order as long as possible. Those who remain are here because of chance, bad luck, or choices out of their control. But you see the faces around you, people whose lives have become part of your own. The baker who shared news each morning, now waist-deep in ash, digging through debris for his wife. The thermopolium owner, face cut and bleeding, carrying a child through the square. Children you know by name, clutching adults who can no longer protect them. The city's last survivors look to you, not for miracles, but for one more act of leadership. The sound of the approaching pyroclastic flow grows louder, a deep, inhuman roar that drowns out even the cries for help. It's like the earth itself is screaming. The air thickens, heat radiates from the sky, and the ground shakes beneath your feet. You know that soon the choice will be gone. The mountain will decide for you. You take your signet ring from your finger, feeling the weight of its carved emblem. This ring sealed decrees, settled disputes, marked you as the city's leader. In your hand, it's a reminder of every promise you made, every responsibility you accepted. You could leave it behind, ride for your life, and hope to start again somewhere far from Pompeii. Or you could stay, using your last moments to help as many as you can, knowing what it will cost. You think back over your years in office, the contracts you signed, the disputes you settled, the mornings spent reviewing petitions and listening to complaints. You think of the trust people placed in you, the way your decisions shaped their lives. Every judgment, every compromise, every act of mercy or firmness led to this day. Now, the meaning of leadership is stripped bare. It's not about power or reputation. It's about whether you stand with your people, even when there is nothing left to gain. You hear your name called again, sharp and desperate. A voice from the direction of the collapsed thermopolium, another from beneath the stones of the basilica. Each one is a plea for help, a hope that you will not abandon them. The mountain's voice is louder now, but these human voices cut through, reminding you why you accepted the burden of leadership in the first place. You hesitate for one last breath. The horse paws at the ground, ready to run. The path to survival is open, but so is the path to duty. You slip your ring back onto your finger, feeling its familiar pressure. You turn away from the horse and move toward the voices calling for help. You join the survivors in the forum, helping to dig through ash and debris, lifting stones, pulling people free when you can. You shout instructions, organize those who are still able to move, and comfort those who cannot. The roar of the mountain grows so loud that you have to lean close to be heard. You see fear in every face, but also gratitude. In these final minutes, you are not a magistrate or a patrician. You are simply a person among others, doing what you can. The ash falls thicker, the heat intensifies, and the world narrows to the small circle of people around you. You feel the weight of each decision, each life you touch. You work until your strength fails, until the air is too thick to breathe, until the mountain's fury overtakes everything. In this last act, you find a kind of peace. You know you could have chosen survival, but you chose to stay. You chose to honor the trust placed in you, to live up to the ideals that shaped your life. The end is swift and absolute, but it is not empty. It is filled with the presence of others, with the knowledge that you did not turn away. As silence falls and the city disappears beneath the ash, you leave behind not just a record of authority, but a memory of compassion and courage. The story of Pompeii now belongs to history, but your final choice gives it meaning. Soon, as the world outside the ash cloud stirs to the first light of another day, the consequences of every warning, every hesitation, and every act of bravery will become clear.
With the city all but silent, the time for hesitation disappears. The final decision comes when you realize there is no more waiting, no more hoping for another sign or a change in the mountain's fury. You wake to a world transformed. The sky glows with an orange pulse and the air is thick with dust. Servants cluster in the courtyard, their faces drawn and anxious, pointing to the mountain, where smoke and fire twist upward in columns that blot out the sun. The mountain, a familiar part of daily life, now pulses with a threat you can no longer deny. The ground shakes so hard, you have to brace yourself against a wall. The marble floors split beneath your feet, sending a jolt through your body. Vases topple and shatter, and water stops flowing in the fountain as the aqueducts fail. The city's comforts and routines vanish in a matter of minutes. Every sign you once brushed aside now lines up in a pattern that is impossible to ignore. You feel the weight of every delayed decision, every reassurance you offered, now collapsing under the pressure of what's happening. A deep, rolling sound fills the air, louder than thunder, deeper than anything you've ever heard. The eruption is not just noise, it's a force that shakes the city to its core. The pressure in your ears makes it hard to breathe, and the windows rattle in their frames. Outside, birds fall from the sky, stunned by the force of the blast. The morning turns to darkness as ash and smoke billow high above, blocking out the sun and casting everything in a grey, shifting twilight. Stones start to fall along with the ash. Some are small enough to bounce harmlessly off rooftops, but others crash through tiles and shatter on the streets. The sound of breaking pottery and snapping beams echoes through the city. You see people running from their homes, clutching whatever they could grab, a blanket, a loaf of bread, a child's hand. The panic is immediate and raw. Parents shout for children, neighbors call out warnings, and the streets fill with the chaos of thousands trying to escape. Every instinct you have as a Roman leader tells you to stay calm, to project confidence, to find a solution, but the world you know is falling apart. Your family gathers at the entrance to the villa, ready to leave. Your wife holds your youngest daughter close, her face streaked with ash and fear. Your son loads a cart with gold, important documents, and whatever supplies you can carry. They beg you to join them, to think first of your own blood, to escape while there is still a chance.
You hesitate, torn between the urge to protect your family and the sense of duty that has guided your entire life. You know the roads are already crowded with refugees. The city's infrastructure is failing. Drains clog with ash, sewers back up, and the roads that once carried goods and people now trap them in place. The aqueducts that brought fresh water now run dry or carry poison. The very systems that made the city strong are now obstacles to survival. You look out over the city and see people looking back at you. Citizens who trusted you to keep them safe, neighbors who voted for your leadership, strangers who now call your name in the forum. Their faces are desperate. They need direction, and you are the only authority left. You know that abandoning them would mean breaking every promise you made as a leader. Yet staying means risking everything you hold dear. The social order that defined Pompeii collapses in the face of the eruption. Wealthy and poor, patrician and plebeian, master and slave, all are caught in the same disaster. You see senators running alongside laborers, slaves helping to clear debris for their owners, and children from every background crying in the streets. The mountain's ash covers everyone equally. The distinctions that once mattered so much now seem meaningless. You watch as some of your neighbors load their ceremonial chariots for a frantic escape. Their servants remain behind, bound by law and custom, unable to flee without permission. The reality of Roman society is laid bare. Those with resources move first, while the rest wait for help that may never come. The city's systems, so effective in good times, now decide who gets a chance to live. Your mind races through every lesson you've learned about duty and honor. Roman ideals demand sacrifice for the greater good, but your family's faces remind you of your most basic obligations. The choice feels impossible. You know that no matter what you decide, someone will be left behind. Then you hear your name from the forum, shouted above the noise, carried by voices you recognize. The people you've led for years are calling to you, asking for help, for guidance, for a sign that someone still cares. The sound cuts through the roar of the eruption and the chaos in the streets. It is a call you cannot ignore. You turn to your family. You hold them close, pressing a kiss to your wife's forehead and your daughter's hair, gripping your son's shoulder. You promise you will find them if you can, that you will do everything in your power to survive. But you know, as you step away, that this is likely the last time you will see them. You walk toward the forum, moving against the tide of people fleeing the city. The ash is already thick on the ground, making every step a struggle. You join the crowds, organizing small groups, helping the injured, shouting instructions over the noise. You direct people to shelter where the stone is thickest, urge others to move toward the gates if the roads are still open, and do your best to keep panic from turning into chaos. Your final decision is to stay, not because you expect to survive, but because you know that leadership means more than saving yourself. You choose to be present for those who have no one else. You use your last strength to help others, to bring a measure of order to the end of the city you loved. As the ash falls heavier and the world grows darker, you realize that what matters most is not the outcome, but the choice itself. The decision to stand with your people, even as everything collapses, is what will define your story. In the silence that follows, the city disappears beneath a blanket of ash. The world you knew is gone, but your final choice remains. A moment that will outlast even the destruction of Pompeii. In the aftermath, Pompeii becomes more than a lost city. It becomes a lesson preserved in ash. The eruption's destruction also created a perfect record of Roman life, sealing streets, homes, and final moments beneath layers of volcanic debris. Archaeologists uncover these details centuries later, plaster casts of people in their last moments, kitchens with meals left uneaten, and rooms paused in the middle of daily routines. You can see the choices made in those final hours, some reaching for loved ones, others clutching valuables, a few alone in quiet corners. These are not just distant artifacts. They are glimpses into the values and fears of real people. The city's preservation gives us a window into the realities of leadership, family, and survival at the edge of disaster. As the layers of ash settle, the city waits in silence, holding every detail for future eyes to find. When time stopped in Pompeii, it wasn't marked by a single dramatic moment, but by the slow, relentless advance of ash and stone that erased the familiar world piece by piece. The mountain's eruption transformed your city into a place where every breath felt like inhaling dust, and every step became a battle against the weight of volcanic debris. Streets you'd known for decades vanished beneath drifting grey mounds, and the buildings that once held generations of stories bent and collapsed under a burden they were never meant to bear. The Forum, once the centre of daily life and authority, disappeared until only the tips of its columns poked through the ash, silent reminders of a civilization's end. In those final hours, the disaster unfolded faster than anyone could fully understand. The sky, black as pitch in the middle of the afternoon, pressed down on the city. Pumice stones, at first just a nuisance, grew into a deadly rain. Chunks of rock crashed through rooftops, broke marble columns, and filled the air with the sound of destruction. Human voices faded beneath the mountain's roar. Screams and shouts became distant, then vanished altogether, replaced by the constant, overwhelming noise of collapse. Breathing was a conscious act. The air, thick with volcanic particles, scraped at your throat and lungs. Each inhale felt like swallowing grit, and every cough brought up more ash. The sulfur stung your eyes, burned your nose, and made it nearly impossible to see or think clearly. Cloths wrapped over mouths and noses offered little protection. The ash worked its way through every barrier, settling on skin, hair, and clothing, making every movement harder. Darkness fell over Pompeii, even as the hours should have belonged to daylight. Lamps and torches flickered in the gloom, their light swallowed by the swirling ash. Familiar landmarks, statues, fountains, the outlines of houses, disappeared, replaced by strange, shifting shapes. Streets became canyons of ash. Buildings turned into formless hills. The city you knew was gone, replaced by a landscape that seemed to exist outside of time. You saw the end not as an abstract event, but in the faces and gestures of people around you. Some tried to save what mattered most: a baker clutching loaves of bread, a mother wrapping her arms around her children, an old man sitting quietly on his doorstep. Each person's final moments told a story. These weren't distant tragedies or nameless victims. They were your neighbors, friends, and fellow citizens. You remembered their laughter at festivals, their complaints in the forum, their kindness and their flaws. Now, all of that was caught in the instant when the world changed. The city that took centuries to build was unmade in a matter of hours. Temples that had stood for generations vanished beneath the ash, their columns toppled and their altars buried. The amphitheater, once filled with cheers, became a bowl of debris. Aqueducts that brought fresh water to every home now ran with nothing but mud and stone. The systems and structures that defined Roman life, so carefully planned and maintained, were powerless against the force of the mountain. Your thoughts turned to the warnings you'd ignored, the nervous animals, the sulfur in the air, the stories from shepherds and sailors. You remembered dismissing these signs, trusting in Roman reason and tradition. Now, you saw how knowledge could come from unexpected places, how those closest to the land, the animals, and the rhythms of nature sometimes understood more than those trained in law or politics. The wisdom of slaves, freed men, and the poor had gone unheeded, and the price was paid by all. In the last moments, you did what you could. You gathered survivors, led them to the basilica's thick stone walls, and used your authority to organize and reassure. Inside, the old boundaries of class and status broke down. Senators and slaves, merchants and laborers huddled together, breathing the same ash-filled air, sharing the same hope that the stone roof would hold. The basilica became a shelter, not just from the falling debris, but from the fear that threatened to overwhelm everyone. The eruption revealed how quickly everything can be lost. The ash that killed also preserved, freezing a single day in astonishing detail. Archaeologists will someday find bread left in ovens, tables set for meals never eaten, and bodies caught in their final gestures. The city becomes a record of ordinary life and extraordinary loss, a place where the past is captured at the moment when time stopped. You realize that your story, and the story of everyone in Pompeii, would not be remembered through official records or monuments, but through the simple, unplanned evidence left behind. The volcanic ash became a kind of monument, more lasting than any statue or inscription. It preserved not just the grand achievements, but the small details. A ring on a finger, a loaf of bread, a mother's embrace. The city's end would become a lesson for the future, a way for others to understand what it meant to live, to lead, and to face the unimaginable. As the ash continued to fall, you understood that leadership, community, and even love could be found in the smallest acts. Helping someone to shelter, sharing water, offering a word of comfort. In the end, it wasn't status or wealth that mattered, but the choices made in those last moments. The city's story, frozen in time, would speak to the courage, mistakes, and humanity of its people. The silence that followed the eruption was complete. The city, once full of life and noise, now lay beneath a blanket of ash, every detail preserved for someone in the distant future to discover. The moment when time stopped in Pompeii became not just an ending, but a beginning, a way for others to remember, to question, and to learn from what was left behind. And so, as we reflect on these final hours, we are reminded that history is not just a collection of dates and ruins, but a record of human experience, of choices made, risks taken, and lives lived fully, even in the shadow of disaster. Pompeii's legacy endures because its preservation allows us to see the details of daily life and the realities of crisis. The plaster casts found by archaeologists are not just artifacts. They are moments captured in time, people reaching for loved ones, clutching prized possessions, or simply pausing in uncertainty. These preserved figures reveal how ordinary individuals face the unimaginable, offering a window into their values and fears. The decisions made by Pompeii's leaders under pressure and with limited information reflect dilemmas that still challenge us today. Balancing safety, community needs, and conflicting advice is never simple. The story of Pompeii reminds us that behind every ruin are the lived experiences and choices of real people, lessons that continue to resonate across centuries.